It's done. The JR Co 48-inch tine rake is done. The universal mount did not work on my mower, so I just had to take this mounting bar and get some 9/16 and drill them through the square tubing, which is very thick, and also this is very thick. Luckily I have a drill press, and so I just pressed through here. I literally just duct taped them together and marked it with yellow crayon where the drill holes needed to go and where the boundary was for this versus this. So I marked it with yellow crayon. I'd really recommend that. Yellow crayon shows up real nice against the black paint. So as you can see, these bolts are huge, probably way overkill, but between this suitcase weight to counterbalance the bagger, I literally only had this much room, as you can flatly see. I mean, there might be a millimeter, maybe a millimeter, less than a millimeter between this head and here. And of course, you're not going to put that over here. So that's all the room I had to work with. If I wanted to keep everything functional, keep the weight on, and also have the tine rake attachment on at the same time, that's what it called for. I don't like the way this looks. I might want to center that. But everything's in. There's literally just that much room on either side. Just like this one shows it better. It's a little more light. There's maybe a half a millimeter or millimeter of room between the head and I wanted these nuts and washers to be inbound of the end of the piece, which they are. So my measurements were accurate. Right now the brackets are set at 9.5 inches above the ground, which is the initial setting. You want the tines to drag and rake, and then you bag as you go. You don't have to, you can do one or the other, but it's just a little more efficient to bag at the same time. It's an excellent mower. I'd recommend one of these. They're just what you want for like a residential lawn. It's not too heavy. It's not going to tear up your ground. But getting that drilled out was a little bit of a task. Probably took a half hour of careful drilling just through those pieces. Got some real good clean cuts I'm happy with. The weak point is definitely these 1 inch 3/4. I reinforced them to give them a little more torsional strength. I gave them some washers. And if there's a weak point, that's it. Those are 3/4 by 1 inch. And I don't know, I might tap those out for larger something. I don't know if I'll go to 9/16. I mean, I could, why not? That's good, sturdy, hardcore hardware. These are grade 10. Those aren't going anywhere. These brackets are double bolted with 2 3/4 by 1 inch. Or I think it's 1 1/4 on either side. Each bracket has 2 bolts in it, here and here. So those are a little bit stronger that way. But I still think 1 9/16 is stronger than 2 3/4 probably. But we'll find out if it breaks off. I can always drill and tap larger holes. Yeah, it's done. I got my plug aerator, got my tine rake, got my bagger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to harvest this grass seed. I let the grass go to seed before I cut it just about every time. And normally I just recycle it with the recycle blades and let it go back down. And I have a thick lawn and all. But there's a lot of thatch because I never bagged it before. And I don't think the previous owner ever did. So I'm going to get this grass seed off the top. I'm going to bag that and set that aside probably. Might be able to reuse that. And then I'm just gonna scalp it down to like nothing. I'm gonna bag it. And then I'm going to tine rake, hence the JRCO tine rake, and all the work. I'm gonna do the whole lawn because there's thatch everywhere. Need to pull that up. Take it down to the dump. Then I'm gonna run the plug aerator, and then I'm gonna seed bluegrass. Yeah, that will, you know, these tools are not cheap. The tine rake is not cheap. The plug aerator, that was not that expensive, but it's not cheap. The bagger, very expensive. The one thing about a smaller mower like this is that it doesn't come with a accelerator. The bigger ones have a belt-driven accelerator on the side. It's like a turbo fan, just helps lift it. It's basically a lift fan, helps lift it up the tube. These tubes are notorious for getting clogged. Even with a lift fan on the side, they still clog up, especially if it's wet. So if it's wet and you have one of those, you just want to take a little bit off at a time, or you're gonna get clumps and clogs. It's just gonna be you jumping off, clearing it, jumping back on. It's gonna get super annoying. Been there, done that. This is just for my yard. I'm just doing my yard, and I only mow like whenever it actually needs it. So this isn't going to get a lot of use, this stuff. Basically bought this stuff just so I have it. All right, that's 7 minutes of our lives we'll never get back. But basically, this is like the lawn care guru setup. I've only got an acre, so it's not like a crisis here. I mean, only some of it's mowable. But I guess I like having gadgets and things to do. I need things to do, or I get crazy.